Well, evening guys, welcome to my shop. I posted a thread on RC Canada the other day about a new Corsair coming out to play, in which case I had taken some pictures of a recent build. She's yet to be maidened. That's coming up in a couple of days, I hope. But somebody another member of the community of RC Canada suggested they saw the decals and how I'd made them, had suggested that maybe I could do a construction build thread on how I modified my vinyl cutter to cut covering. And it's a bit of a tedious task. You definitely need to be a DIYer. I'll get to some of the reasons why here in a little bit. But essentially, I've got this beautiful Phoenix models Corsair, and but I'm not a big fan of USAF insignia or livery, so I decided to go with an RAF type of livery and make some roundels of the British livery, and simply because, well, there were Canadians flying the F4U Corsair for the RAF, well, specifically for the RAF Navy, or the Royal Navy, I guess it would be. Yeah, I think I got that right. So anyway, I'm going to start this off with a little bit of a primer on vinyl cutters, because I had originally set it up and it was good enough. I got what I needed cut, and yeah, it was good enough. So since the other members suggested that I do a build thread on this, which would be difficult, so I decided to do a video. Much easier to demonstrate. I got into the project a little bit more and did a little more research into it, and there's more information available nowadays about what to do and how to do it as far as cutting vinyl. There's nothing there about cutting covering, and I don't like vinyl stickers on a model, simply because if you have to go around, anybody who's any kind of a serious modeler, usually once a year or once every couple of years, you got to go around with a sealing iron and reshrink your covering, and vinyl just doesn't really work well with the heat. And so I decided a few years back to I was building an LT40, and I didn't like the decals on it, simply because they have a tendency to peel off after a number of years. So I decided to get into a vinyl cutter and see if I could do this. And yeah, the LT40 turned out beautiful, gorgeous looking airplane. So anyway, to get started here on this vinyl cutter thing, one of the things I found out recently was your knife blades right here. So these ones have a red cap, and I'll show you these ones here, okay? And as you can see, these ones are yellow and these ones are blue. So the color caps indicate the angle of the blade. And let me just grab a pen here. So your blade angle, so you're get this in the middle of the camera here. So here's your shaft, like this. Well, your blade angle is measured here, okay, and specifically from here to here. So this particular cutting knife is a 45-degree angle. The blue ones are 60-degree angle, and these yellow ones are actually a 30-degree angle. So the yellow ones have a much steeper pitch to them, like this. That's a little exaggerated, but you get the idea. And apparently the yellow ones are designed to cut thin film. Now, up to this point, I've been using a red one that I had, which worked satisfactory to what I was doing. And but then I buy these off of Amazon. I bought one package of 10 pieces for I think it was with taxes and everything, it was about $9 or something like that. Pretty cheap for 10 blades. And but basically we'll get into this. And so anyway, I can't begin to tell you how sharp these things really are. They are insanely sharp. So you get the cap off and you're presented with this rather pointed little fellow. I don't know if you can see the edges of that or not, but anyway, so carefully grabbing that end. This is a blade holder, so it generally screws into this part in here, and for the most part, once it's in and set, you need only, there's a little button right here that you can push that will eject the blade. So if we put the blade in, now the thing you want to remember about this is that there are two bearings in here, one down at this end and one up higher. So you want to be sure that your bearings are moving quite freely, because this thing is constantly changing direction as it's cutting. So that blade has to basically, it follows, the tip of the blade follows whatever direction it goes. So anyway, and after that, like I say, if you need to change a blade, you can simply push the button, and once, we'll just kind of put this together for a second. So it just simply threads in, and what we're going to do is we're going to get into how to set the depth of your blade. And so if I screw that in far enough, then you will see that when I push the button, the blade pops out and it's easy to grab, well, sort of, and remove, and then you can just simply reinstall it, a new blade, and you're back in business again. So covering, I went searching the internet and looking through YouTube videos and everything else, and of course everybody and his brother has their version of how to set the blade depth. One guy, he had to be talking about doing, well, they're all talking about doing vinyl. One guy says to take this and lay a credit card up beside it and set the depth of half the thickness of a credit card. Well, I don't know about anybody else, but I have a hard enough time seeing the end of that little blade, and yeah, it's deep enough I can feel the tip of it. So we're going to back that off a little bit. I didn't really think that was a real accurate way, especially considering the thickness of the material that we're going to try to be cutting. Another fellow said that you hold it like this and you turn it down until you cut through the vinyl, but without cutting through the backing of the vinyl. Which, that kind of made sense. You don't want to cut the backing because the vinyl is, it's holding the vinyl in place, and you don't want it ripping out all over the place. So I kind of took that one to mean that, you know, that's where we go. So, but trying to hold this thing perpendicular like this while you're trying to cut something and adjust the blade is kind of, if it rocks up on this edge, that's going to change your depth setting. So I did a little checking, and surprisingly enough, I found an old roll of super monokote here, and so we're going to have a look at this. And so I don't know if I can get this in the camera or not, but basically, okay, so we're at 0, and if we go here, so where are we here? Let's right here. So there you are, monokote. Oh, it changed. Okay, was that me or was that the monokote? Okay, let's 0 that. Okay, that's 0 now. So so the monocote is about 0.005. Is that? Yeah, that's okay. So monocote is basically it's 0.05 millimeters in thickness, and so that's some old super monocote. Now here I've got my preferred covering, believe it or not, is well, I like ultracote, but it's a little pricey. So in a bunch of years there, I've been buying the offshore stuff from China. We affectionately call it China coat, and get it from Hobby King. It all has all the same properties as ultracote and just a lot less money. So here's this, and that is 0.05. Alright, so that's that ultracote stuff. And Dancing Wing Hobby is another brand that I buy. It's locally available now. So here we have, am I grabbing something else there, or that says 0.08. Did this thing go out of 0? No. Okay, let's 0 that. And we'll go back here to 0.04. Alright, that, oh, 0.06, depending on how hard I push on it. Looks like the calipers are going for a little. Now they're reading minus, okay. So, just to recheck this. Yep, it's 0.05. And anybody who saw the pictures of my Corsair in RC Canada, the material that I used was this blue stuff right here. Again, I'm not sure where that one came from, but surprisingly enough, but it is, where are we here? Well, again, this is, I'm trying to hold this and do this at the same time, so, okay. Get this into the camera here someplace. 0.06. Yeah, 0.06. So that's actually a little bit thicker. So that in itself is going to end up causing a little bit of a problem. So ideally, if you want to set blade depth, I found, and this is only my opinion, okay, is you ideally you want to cut through the covering, but you don't want to cut through the backing like we have right here. Yeah, my camera skills are not that great. Alright, so ideally we want to cut the covering and not and not the backing. And so I came up with this little gizmo right here. So it's a little flat. It's about 30 millimeters by 30 millimeters, and it's set up to basically put that in, and you can just kind of hold a bit of pressure down on that, and away you go. So you can adjust your depth, and so we have a locking ring. We have a locking ring right here to lock it in place. So ideally we are going to try to set our blade depth. So let me just kind of zoom out a little wee bit. Alright, maybe that'll work better. So here we are. So we're going to take this, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust it down. I can feel it snag. I can just feel it snagging the paper underneath when I hold a little bit of pressure down on it. So I want to dial that back just a wee hair. Alright, so here we are. So I'm going to hold it. I'm going to put my locking ring down, because it will change how the depth of your blade by that little wee bit. So we're going to hold this down. My little jig is going to hold it square. We draw a line and it does nothing. So let's back off the ring. Let's turn it a little wee bit. And again, we hold a little pressure down. And did we do anything? I don't think so. I can't feel it dragging, so. Okay, so now I'm going to hold that and okay, so alright, so we've definitely cut the material, but the problem is here we've cut all the way through, so that's too deep. Let me grab another piece here. So what we want to do is we'll back off that backing ring a little bit. Come on. Oh man, that thing really grabs. So then we want to just back it off just ever such a slight hair. And holding some pressure down. Okay, so, well, we didn't cut all the way through, but we haven't really cut the material that well. It's tearing. Okay, so we're not deep enough. All right. Okay. So not quite deep enough. So here we go. I'm going to back off that ring a little bit. Just ever so slightly turn that down. Put my locking ring in, and then, and when you're doing this, I would recommend having like a piece of Bristol board underneath so that you don't inadvertently damage your blade. These things are excessively sharp, but they can also be damaged very easily. So let's try another cut right there. And again, we're too deep. Again, we're too deep. So this can be a little bit tedious. Just ever such a slight little movement. Alright, let's try this one more time here. That's pretty good. It's not really tearing, it's just ever so, maybe I can just give that just a little bit of, but more importantly is we haven't cut the backing. Maybe I can give that just a little bit of a forceful twist. No. Oh, things are really not going well here. What is going on? Okay, we're back. So after a rather few tedious moments, I think I finally got this set right. So if I hold that down and I just kind of hold my fingers on that just to hold it all square and hold a little pressure down on the knife. Quick cut. And what have we got? Got a fairly clean cut. without cutting our backing. So not bad. Alright, this is getting wonderfully close. Alright, let's try this. Let's see if I can do this. I don't know. But I cut through the backing. Okay, well, maybe I didn't have any backing there. That could be. So, we've got that kind of initial depth set right now. Here's another piece of this Dancing Wings hobby stuff, I believe. Let's try this. And what do we get? Well, we cut through some of the covering. That could be also adjusted. One of the other things that I've read about is setting the pressure on the down pressure on your CNC cutter. So I just might be applying a little too much pressure. We're just kind of simulating this. So now I didn't really cut deep enough. So it's kind of hit and miss. And again, I kind of cut through the covering. Where it's in there someplace, but you get the gist of the idea. So here's a piece of old monokote, right? So again, we're going to just hold that and straight line, and we did kind of cut through the covering there a little bit. That could be me holding too much pressure down. And that cut there went quite nicely without cutting the covering. Excellent. So we're really close on blade depth, I think. So here's the stuff. This stuff measured, it's got a paper backing, so that could change the way the cutter cuts. It's a little bit thicker than the stuff with the plastic film. So this measured on the micrometers at 0.06, and so that's 0.01 thicker than the other one. So if we try this here, and what we get is a hard time getting the covering apart. Alright, so here, so we didn't quite, I have to really tug that to separate it. So basically it's the thickness of the glue that is still holding that covering together. So yeah, you can't see it on the camera, but there's our backing, and what we have here is, you can see right there, that clear spot in the middle, that's the glue. That's the glue in the back of that covering. That's how close we are. That we cut the covering, but not the glue. That's pretty neat. That's got to be close. So here's the same covering. There's no backing on this, so we're going to just kind of give that a quick shot. And what we have is, again, we didn't get all the way through. So when you go to cut, you're going to have to set your blade depths, set the pressure on your vinyl cutter, and it's just going to be trial and error from that point on. And so you can just, if you drag that over the paper, you can just feel that kind of dragging there. Let's give this one more shot. I'm going to just hold my, oh yeah, but if I push down on that, that's going to push the blade out, isn't it? Duh. Okay, so I think that covers your blades, setting your blade depths and everything else. And here's another neat little tool. We'll get to it a little closer to the end of the video. Another little thing, this is a plotter pin. you can put that in your vinyl cutter. And I don't know about you guys, but I hate cutting up good covering to find out that I made a mistake and I have to throw out a pile of covering for something stupid. So this is going to end up being a handy tool. Later on in the video we'll show you that. So I got another blade here to set up. Oh yeah, that's what we're going to do. We're going to take out that 90-degree blade or 45-degree blade, and without stabbing myself, we're going to grab one of these thin film blades. Aha! Let's see. So again, we just let that slide down in there. Just give her a little. There's a little magnet up inside there, by the way, that kind of holds that in place. So let's try this again. Well, there's the difference. It cut through that. So here's some super monokote. And it cut through the super monokote. Oh, it just lightly scored and didn't completely cut all of the backing. It cut some of it, but not all of it. Alright, let's give this over here a whirl. See what happens here. This is with the 30-degree blade, which is supposed to be for thin film. So again, we cut right through. I can't say as the blades are going to be the same length. You may, if you change blades, you may have to reset your depths. That's something you're just going to have to tinker around with, but for the most of it, this covers what I think is the proper way to set your blade depth, is cut through the covering without cutting through the backing, and you should be just about good to go. And we'll cover that in the next session when we get to the vinyl cutter. Alright, talk to you later. Okay, so we're back here for a minute. I'm just going to take a quick brief. There's something I forgot to mention earlier, is I had a lot of trouble trying to get the pressure setting on the cutter just right, and it seemed like these things are designed for cutting something much thicker like vinyl. So what I ended up doing is I made this little, I 3D printed this little wee ring. It's just a little spacer to fit over my over the cutting blade holder here, and I don't know if you can see that real well or not, but basically it's 2 millimeters thick, and I just put it over here, and I'll show you when we get to the cutter. I just slide that on. It's nice and firm so it won't move, and that just raises the cutting knife up 2 millimeters, and it seemed to give me, at least for me anyway, it seemed to give me a lot better control over the pressure adjustment when it's cutting. So it did make a it made an improvement in how well it does cut. So we'll get to that more for in a little bit. For now, I just want to show you the program. Okay, so right now, this is the program that I'm using. It's called WinPC Sign. Now, I am by no means an expert at this program, and I used to work it pretty good. I've since forgotten a lot of it since then. On this page here, you can set the size of a worksheet that you want, but I'm not going to here at this time. I'm going to go and pull up an old file. And if you go looking through some of my posts on RC Canada, you will see pictures of my LT40, and you will see pictures of a Hobbyco 60 that I did up some pretty wild covering on it a while back. So this is, if you can see that, this is actually the panel that goes on the wing, and all of this is basically everything around these little stringers coming up here is cut away. So there's a fair bit of waste to this particular pattern, but when I got done, it looked pretty good. It was pretty amazing. So it's this is and yeah, this is something that you can be, you can design. You can take oh, let's go up here, grab a tool. So I can come down here and I can manipulate this, and I can pull that down, and I can kind of slide everything around and change the shape of it however way I like. So if you get into this program, or whatever program you decide to use, then your imagination is your only limit as far as I'm concerned, what this thing can possibly do. For a lot of the stuff that I've been doing recently, I prefer to go into FreeCAD and design what I want if I want a particular shape or something. I can go into FreeCAD and I can do very precise designs in FreeCAD, and then I export it as a DXF file, and then I can import it into WinPC Sign as a DXF file, and go and cut it from there. So, but for now, we're going to just worry about just doing a test cut. So I came up with a file that where did it go? Okay, we got to go find the file. So so test cut. All right. So this is just kind of like my little starfish, and it utilizes a lot of the ability of the cutter to be able to change directions, and it'll give you a pretty good. Now this starfish it only comes out about 1 inch square, I think it is, maybe 1.25 inches, but this is what I use as a test cut. And so I will run, so I'm not using up a lot of material, but I can cut this, and then I can judge whether my blade depth is correct, and go from there. So like I say, we've set the blade depth primarily over in the workbench. I think we're pretty close to it. So now we can adjust the pressures on the vinyl cutter and do test cuts and go from there. So I'll see you at the next segment. Okay, so hopefully this is the last part, but anyway, here's my vinyl cutter. I initially had some problems with this. Is this little bobby thing that basically there's a magnetic coil in here. Now with this machine, with these machines, these are not, they're like a CNC, but they are far from the accuracy of the CNC. So down pressure is something that is sort of a variable, because it's just an electromagnetic coil, and the strength of the magnetic field that it sets up generates the amount of down pressure, which, that an electric coil like that, it's hit and miss. And that would be probably the reason why I had made that modification to my blade cutter, and put that spacer underneath of it, so that I could, it gave me a little better control over being able to adjust my pressures. So now, as you can see, it can easily, because what it was happening is it was sticking down, and the knife blade was grabbing the covering and cutting it out. Now you'll see here underneath the covering I have this is actually a vinyl. This is actually the vinyl that you would normally be cutting, and even though the vinyl cutter has a strip underneath here, like a little narrow little PTFE nylon type strip that protects the blade from damage, I found that trying to run just covering through here, the rollers would grab it, it would bunch off, it would track off, it would do all kinds of weird and funny things, and it wouldn't cut right. So I thought about putting this vinyl, since I had rolls and rolls of it, I put this vinyl underneath here as a cutting mat. which gave it just that little wee bit of softness for the blade to push down against. Now the only problem with this is, like, all this stuff, the covering, the vinyl, like, it's not perfectly the exact same thickness through the entire sheet, so thicknesses are going to vary, and we'll get to that at the end of the video. And so for now, I've got my speed, and fast is not always a good thing. Okay, I've actually slowed this down to 100 millimeters per second with initial weight of 50 grams of force. But as I say, because it's an electromagnetic coil, that's a variable. So basically we're going to just set this up for position, and let's get over to the edge here. And I've also put, I don't know if you can see it here, but yeah, so I've taped the edge of the covering, and that actually helps hold the covering in position as the rollers move the material back and forth underneath the cutter. So let's just see. Okay, so we're going to set that as our origin point. We've got 100. I've even cut as slow as 50 millimeters, and it does the slower you go, the nicer the job. So we've got a 30-degree cutting blade. We've got 100 millimeters per second and 50 grams of force. This is monokote, so I'm going to go start a print job, and we'll see what it turns out like. Okay, that didn't take long. So let's move the cutting head out of the way, and let's have a look and see what we got. I can feel where it cut, but normally I would take this out of there. So that didn't seem to cut quite, maybe I just, no, that didn't cut quite deep enough. Okay, so we'll move the cutting head over. Oops, too far. Okay, set the origin, and we're going to increase the pressure to 100 grams. Okay, let's move the cutting head out of the way. Now let's see, where did we... Okay, I can kind of see an outline of it there. So, yeah, maybe it did. And normally you would take this out of the machine and then okay, this is not completely cut. So let's go back. And where were we here? So we want to go more. Somewhere's right about there. And let's increase our pressure to 150. Let's see if we did it this time. No, doesn't look like it. Doesn't look like it. I can feel the cut. It just isn't quite there. So we may not have our knife blade set quite right yet. So let me adjust that a little wee bit, and I'll get back to you. Okay, we're back again. So I had to tweak the blade depth just ever so slightly, and now mind you, I've never tried cutting monokote before. It's always been ultracote or China coat or whatever I happen to have here. So currently we've tweaked the knife blade depth a little bit, and we're sitting at 150 grams of pressure, and our speed is still at 100 millimeters per second. So let's give her a go. Alright, so let's see what we got. We just get that edge. Normally, like I say, you would take this out of the cutter and take the backing off, but what we're oh, there's a piece out of there. That looks good so far. And let's see, how do we do? There's part of our starfish. Just get underneath that covering so I can get that out. And there, oh, look at that. Look at that. So there's our starfish. Well, like I say, this is a real kind of a tweaky thing. You really gotta nitpick with it to get it to work right, but I mean, for all intents and purposes, like, you want to cut something like this, then, you know, like, that's pretty, I don't know, I think that's pretty cool myself. But anyway, yeah, it looks like we've got her dialed in for the monokote. So I'm going to take a break here for a second, and I'm going to set the machine up for something else that I think you may find interesting, and we'll see you again. Alright, so here's the last little tip that I'm going to give you. And we pulled out our knife cutter blade, and we're going to install this pen plotter blade. Yeah, it's just a ballpoint pen. Well, like you guys, I hate cutting up covering even by hand to find I've made a mistake, and then, oh crap, there goes a bunch. Well, a sheet of printer paper. I've used Bristol board. You can take a sheet of Bristol board from the dollar store. You get 2 sheets for $1.25. Cheap, a lot cheaper than covering. And well, I'll let you see what happens. Well, there you are. Now, I can see where I'm going to be getting a lot more use out of this, because if you, this is a, oh, let's see, let's zoom out here a little wee bit. I don't know, maybe get that under a roller, under the lights maybe. So, I don't know if you can see that or not. Okay. So there's a design I did for an airplane a bunch of years ago, and I don't know about you, but I mean, basically that sheet of paper would have been wasted covering. So now with the pen plotter, you can draw out on a piece of cheap paper. You can check your design. If you're happy with it, go cut it. If you find a mistake, go back and fix it before you waste the covering. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed the video. Let me know in the comments.